to move straight into the Roadsport. There's a couple of little modifications that they need to make, but essentially it's an expensive way of keeping racing in the car the drivers bought and raced with in the Academy in the previous season. So they're running on a 5-speed gearbox using the Ford Sigma engine, and it just shows the success of the Caterham Academy and then the popularity of the Caterham that so many drivers each year come through into the Roadsport Championship. So Elliot Norris is who lines up in pole position. That's largely because just about every single driver in session in qualifying got their time disallowed for not exceeding the track limits. So it is Norris who lines up in pole position, with then Brad Smith alongside on the front row of the grid. The former Army officer, Robert Smith, not the lead string of the queue, lines up in third place, and then Alex McIndoe in fourth. And really, based on qualifying, you would expect it to be between those four drivers to take the overall honours. So Elliot Norris comes into pole position. He is in the black and floral liveried number 11 car. Alongside him on the front row of the grid then is Brad Smith. That is the black and orange number 8 car. Robert Smith is the blue and black number 10 machine, with then Alex McIndoe the all black and then fluorescent yellow roll hooped number 18 car. We've got a couple of gaps in the grid. Firstly, Paul Thacker isn't there in car 66. There's no Paul Thacker, and we're also without Adrian Bidder, unfortunately. So Adrian Bidder is not going to be there, so I guess he's outbid as such. Green flag from the rear of the field, the red lights are on, and who's going to get the jump for this 20-minute race? Away we go. It's a good start from Brad Smith from pole position, and he draws alongside the pole sitter as they head towards Paddock Hill Bend for the first time. It's Elliot Norris who's got the inside line, and therefore should be able to maintain a lead through Paddock. He does just that, although Brad Smith pressurising Robert Smith up into third, James McIndoe fourth. So the top four, as they were into the gravel track, is Adrian Barwick, who rejoins the rear of the field in the 77 car as the leaders head down out of Druids for the first time on towards Graham Hill Bend. Already Brad Smith is putting the pressure on to Elliot Norris, but Norris has won 3 races thus far this year, and Brad Smith trying to draw alongside into 30. He's going to go through and take the lead of the race. That's a very nicely judged move from Brad Smith. Now, will he be able to hold on to that through clearways? Yes, he will, because he just parks the car on the inside of the circuit. He's going to make Elliot Norris do this the hard way, but then Norris may be able to carry a little bit more momentum through Clark Curve onto Bram Straight. That's exactly what he does. So he will now be looking to take full advantage of the slipstream behind Brad Smith, accelerating into the braking zone. Paddock Hill Bend to the outside line is Elliot Norris. Holding the middle of the road though is Brad Smith, and Elliot Norris as a result can't find a way through. So head down through Paddock and then begin the long climb up towards Druids. Robert Smith is also bringing himself into the mix as well. Robert Smith, the former downhill ski racer, very successfully for the Army prior to coming into motor racing. He's a bit of a speed freak generally, and he is there in third position, really looking to put the pressure on, but he just has a bit of a bumpy ride over the curve through Graham Hill Bend. He then slips back a little bit. Also, having made a great start in the early stages, is Robert Chappell. He is coming up into 5th position. Then another graduate from last year's Caterham Academy, that's Achille Corbalati, who I think was on the front row here for his first ever car race in the Academy last year in wet conditions at Brands Hatch. So he is going well in 6th position as they accelerate through and on to complete another lap with still Brad Smith leading from Elliot Norris. Then it's Robert Smith, and then Alex McIndoe down through Paddock Hill Bend, and Elliot Norris once more really tries to pile the pressure onto Brad Smith, but this is looking very nice for Brad Smith. He's driving incredibly smoothly in these early stages. He's not being flustered by the bit that's going on behind, particularly from Elliot Norris to try and make him go off his racing line, try and be a little bit ragged. So he's just driving that perfect invisible ribbon around the Brands Hatch, so he's making Norris and the rest of them do all the hard work. Elliot Norris running out a little bit wide over the curves on that occasion. He tries to latch himself back onto the tail of Brad Smith, but Brad Smith, again, he just takes the clean racing line, and it really belies the experience these drivers have got, because Brad Smith is not looking in his mirrors at all. He's just looking through the windscreen ahead of him, and he's going to make those behind do all the hard work. And as a result, as they come through and complete the 3rd lap of the race, he has got about half a second, or quarter of a second advantage over Elliot Norris and then Robert Smith. And Robert Smith, though, setting the fastest lap of the race this time as they head down through Paddock Hill Bend, and as a result, they're being cleared. Alex McIndoe, Robert Chappell and Achille Corbalati now up into Graham Hill Bend. And Smith just sticking to his guns. He's making Norris try and slide the car to just try and get that opening. These cars so evenly matched in terms of the preparations and modifications that were allowed within the championship specification. It really does come down to driver ability and a couple of very minor setup tweaks as to how the car's performing, and that means overtaking can be a little bit tricky if you've got a driver, as we do before, Brad Smith, who's just doing his own, driving his own race, leading from the front and making those behind do the hard work. So another lap is reeled off. The fastest lap of the race, though, set last around by Alex McIndoe. So Alex McIndoe is fourth position, now just looking to try and play himself into the mix. We are still not yet at 1/4 race distance. We've got just under 16 minutes remaining, and still the group of cars essentially unchanged in the very early stage of the race. Brad Smith leading in from Norris, and then Robert Smith and Alex McIndoe, with Achille Corvallati just beginning to bring himself into this race a little bit in fifth position. He is trying to home in on the leading quartet, and still Robert Chappell as well in sixth position, not too far back. So again, we see a slightly different angle of attack through clearways from Elliot Norris, and then he sets off in pursuit of Brad Smith, accelerating along Grand Straight, although in reality, from his championship perspective, Elliot Norris doesn't need to risk all here to beat Brad Smith. He can quite simply afford to concede a couple of championship points if Smith was a hold on in the lead of the race. What he doesn't want to do is try something that comes off with the result of him ending up in the gravel trap and scoring no championship points at all. But he may have his hands forced here, because Robert Smith and Alex McIndoe are now beginning to latch themselves on to the tail of that battle. McIndoe just running wide out over the grass and into the Druid, so they turn through Graham Hill Bend. Group of really 5 cars, pretty much equidistantly spread about a couple of tenths of a second between each of them as they turn through 13 and then in towards clearways. And still Brad Smith is proving to be the immovable object at the head of the field, because nobody can quite get on terms with the 26-year-old company director from Sutton Coldfield just outside of Birmingham, and he is going to reel off the 6th lap of the race, and still Elliot Norris unable to get himself on terms with him, with then Robert Smith in third place, not under the immediate pressure of Alex McIndoe, but McIndoe in turn may just get the hurry up here, because Achille Corvallati is closing in onto his tail as they climb up the hill towards Druid. And Brad Smith just cannot the wheel roll. Really incredibly impressive driver, because he's been so smooth, and though he's not pulling away from Elliot Norris as such, he's making it absolutely impossible for Norris to get on terms with him, and Norris is unable to get himself around, trying to really take full advantage of the lead. So over to the curbs, 30 once more. We've got a spinner up at Druid, who was back as they recover towards the rear of the field. It could well have been the 77 car, who, if it was unfortunately the 77 car of Adrian Barwick, who has his second accident of the race, because he's done Paddock Hill Bend, he's done Druid, so he's probably due a spin at Graham Hill Bend in about 3 laps time, if he's working his way around sequentially, as the leaders come through Paddock Hill Bend and climb the hill towards Druid, through the hairpin then, and out of the hairpin, down the hill, and then into Graham Hill Bend, with still Smith under pressure from Norris, and Norris this time just trying to hook the car over the curves at Graham Hill Bend, and that he's hoping will give him a little bit more momentum into 30s. It certainly worked on that occasion, and now for the first time in about 7 laps we've got real pressure being put on the race leader. We have got another car that has gone around the Druid, not making it quite as far as the gravel trap, fortunately, as this leading duo are a little bit close than they have been for the past few laps. They're bringing Robert Smith with them, the company Robert Smith, who's just set the fastest lap of the race, as they complete lap 8. And the lead is now covered by half a second. Norris looks to the inside of Brad Smith at Paddock Hill Bend. That's the first challenge we've had in anger to lead the race for a little while, as they climb on towards Druid. So we're going to see Norris launching a bit. He thinks about it, and he's now got Robert Smith and his tail to worry about as well. Alex McIndoe in fourth, just splitting back, but McIndoe will be hoping to bring himself on terms as well. So Smith out of Graham Hill Bend, accelerating along the Cooper Straight on towards 30 once more. We have got just under 12 minutes left in this race, and now Elliot Norris is shown why he's the championship leader. He's just turning up the pressure on Brad Smith. He's let Brad Smith lead the race for a while in the early stages, and now he's saying, I think it's time for me to start thinking that my fourth victory of the season because he is closing in on Smith. Are we going to see the challenge this time around to Paddock Hill Bend? Well, Smith covers the inside line, so he certainly knows that Norris is coming, but Elliot Norris then switching back, trying to pressurise, couldn't quite squeeze through, and Brad Smith maintaining then the lead of the race. Smith has had one victory already this year, that's in the second race at Silverstone, and Command. It took a very, very long time ago for him now. Robert Smith in third place, hasn't had a win at all for years, but he was nearly last spoke of his victory account. And that's the challenge for Elliot Norris. He's just given Brad Smith a little bit of breathing ground. You wouldn't want to discount Robert Smith at this stage, would you, in third place, because he has let Elliot Norris and Brad Smith running. He has just run the race at his own pace, not pushed any harder than he absolutely has had to. And he's rather broken away from Alex McIndoe here. He's also letting the leading duo sort themselves out, biding his time, and then we'll look to change later on because the drivers have got the minute counter just underneath the start line. So you can't really see it from the grandstand at Paddock Hill Bend, but the drivers will be acutely aware of how much time they've got remaining in the race, and therefore the right of Alex McIndoe and Robert Smith, they know that as long as they stay in touch, as long as they don't fall out of the slipstream and the toe of the leading duo, they could still very well go on and take victory through it. Still no change in the order, but that leading quartet just beginning to close up on each other again because, oh, that's a big mistake from Elliot Norris through Graham Hill Bend. He misses the apex by a country mile, very nearly rotates the car, and we could see Robert Smith trying to squeeze through. Elliot Norris shows Smith the opportunity of running on the grass there, so Smith backs out of it, trying to go around the outside into 13. Realised that wasn't going to work for him. Elliot Norris, very fortunate, you have to say, to maintain second place in this race. But what that could have done is now given decisive advantage to Brad Smith, because what they've got to do for the purpose of tactics now is not engage in a fight for second place. Really, Norris, Robert Smith and Alex McIndoe now need to work together as a trio to try and close back in on Brad Smith, because as they cross the line, Smith's advantage was out to over a second ahead of the field for the first time in the race. In terms of the rest of the order, well, it's Eli Corvalati in fifth, Robert Chappell is in fifth place, James Bradshaw is in seventh, eighth place is number 17, so ninth place is number 4, Carl John Whitehouse. Rounding out the top 10 is Mark Lewis. So leading the way and not really being caught here by Elliot Norris is Brad Smith, and this is now looking, it's always been a very impressive for Brad Smith. Could now begin to turn into a race with the advantage for him, but we've still got the best part of half the race to go. You would have hoped, if you were a fan of Elliot Norris, to have seen the gap between Smith and Norris come down on that last lap. So as they complete lap 12, the gap goes out by 0.2 of a second, and Brad Smith chooses the perfect moment to set his personal best lap of the race as he attempts to pull away from this leading group. And Elliot Norris is possibly going to be relieved of the responsibility to be in second place here, because it goes 3 wide into Druid, and there's contact, and around goes Alex McIndoe, who launched to the inside of Elliot Norris. It was 3 wide into the head, and Druid going to recover. He's probably going to take still 6th position there, Alex McIndoe. So, okay, so dear, wasn't it, to McIndoe, because he just tried too hard, up the hairpin into Druid, and around he went. So that now leaves Robert Smith free to challenge Elliot Norris. So has either of those cars suspended any damage? Was that maybe just a little bit too optimistic on brakes there, Alex McIndoe? Certainly that. Whether or not he took any of the bodywork of Elliot Norris with him doesn't appear to have done so. So Norris is free to run unencumbered. All the while, that has given Brad Smith an even larger advantage at the front of the pack. So it's now 1.7 seconds, the gap between Smith and Norris in second, with Corvalati up into 4th position. Chappell in 5th. James McIndoe then into 6th position. And he will now be looking to recover a second count there. So we now see the change, don't we, for second and third, because through has gone Robert Smith. So Smith runs first and second. It's Brad Smith now from Robert Smith, and now Robert Smith is past Elliot Norris. He will try as hard as he can to try and close in on Brad Smith, but Brad Smith is now out of the toe of the cars running in second and third position. It will become very, very tricky for Robert Smith to bring that gap back down. So 14 laps about to be completed, and it is Brad Smith who leads it, as he has done for so much of the race. And his advantage has gone out to 2.3 seconds now as Norris launches the inside of Robert Smith. The paddock hill bends and goes through, and this is going to hand the race on the plate to Brad Smith, because as they fight amongst themselves, they are just depriving themselves of any opportunity of bringing in Brad Smith. So now the battle really is second and third. Elliot Norris reclaims it, so he is in the middle of the Smith sandwich, with Robert Smith trying every which way to try and way up back past him. Kilo Corvallati is actually circulating quicker as well than the fight for second and third position. He's probably too far back to close them, unless they do something silly like synchronised sliding through clearways as they did just then. They maintain their order. I don't quite know they were trying to do, but Norris seemed to slide the car into clearways, and actually Robert Smith probably had no option but to do something similar to avoid contact. So Smith, though, carrying the momentum along Bradman Straight in towards Paddock Hill Bend. Inside line for Elliot Norris, outside line for Robert Smith, and then Smith will look for the switchback, and he could have judged that to absolute perfection. He really carries the speed through Paddock Hill Bend. At mid-apex, he really had the momentum, but Elliot Norris just had enough to get across to the inside of the circuit, making it possible for Robert Smith to challenge around the outside again. Smith out over the curve, through it. Norris' car over the curve, through Grand Hill Bend. That really is an effective technique for him. So he is able to maintain his very slender advantage over Robert Smith into 30s. That's where really Smith favours the curves, and then he launches the inside of Elliot Norris, who again slides the rear of the car on the way into clearways. Actually seems to work for Norris, whereas Smith, the slightly more cynical, smoother route, gives him the run and the momentum through Clark Curve onto Bradman Straight, and he already commits to the outside line. Will he sell Norris the dummy? No, he draws alongside him already. Elliot Norris the inside, Robert Smith the outside again. Smith will then be looking for the switchback, which this time he seems to have judged to perfection. He needs another half a car length on the inside of Elliot Norris, who's got just enough to try and close the door into Druid, but then he runs a little bit wide. Smith the inside, but Norris will then have the inside line to Graham Hill Bend, and so Robert Smith continues to attempt to get through once more. He's still got, though, a quarter of the race with which to try and make this move, so it's not lost just yet. He has a spinner over at clearways. Will hesitate before nominating Adrian Barwick as the spinner, but it could well have been. It is Fahim Rejoy, and if nothing else, got his badge of the money to hold the Ram Catch facility in this race, and he continues to circulate in 16th position, and the fight for second and third, again very close in towards Paddock Hill Bend, and Robert Smith this time was trying to force Elliot Norris' hand under brake into paddock, so they run line astern up the hill towards Druid, while Brad Smith can remain the leaders around the outside of 10th. Robert Smith, now is he able to carry that momentum down towards Graham Bend? That's going to be very, very close, and that was wise driving from Elliot Norris. To be fair to him, he didn't chop across Robert Smith's bound, he gave him racing room. And so Robert Smith, he's not really lost too much momentum, he just wasn't able to get through there. Over the curve once more through 30s, and now rapidly running out of laps here, Robert Smith. Meanwhile, Alex McIndoe has moved up into 5th position past Robert Chappell. So that change happened just on the way down from Druid. They turn through clearways as the fight for second and third heads into its 19th lap of the race, with Brad Smith leading now by 4.7 seconds from Elliot Norris, and Robert Smith maybe just taking a lap or so to compose himself before thinking about his next attempt to get past Elliot Norris. He now knows that Elliot is driving very wide Caterham, and therefore he's going to be about where he launches the move. Really has to try and catch Elliot Norris by surprise. Graham Hill Bend is possibly an opportunity, because Norris, if he doesn't hook the car over the curve on the inside line, he's very uncomfortable to the apex through Graham Hill Bend. He just missed it there, and as a result Robert Smith gets right onto his tail and launches the move up the inside into clearways again. That's going to be incredibly close, and that wasn't really on there, but it certainly gave Elliot Norris a scare, forced him to do something slightly defensive, as Brad Smith reels off 19 laps, and we have got 3 to go, just about, into Hill Bend. Norris to the outside line, inside line, Robert Smith then to the outside, then down the hill. He carries that momentum, and he forces Norris to go defensive again. Elliot Norris was very, very late there in making the move across, right across the front of the nose cone of Robert Smith, and Smith know now that we've got Norris a little bit flustered here. Norris is, with each time he has to maintain that second place, make an effective move, he's getting somewhat more assertive in his chop, and the risk with that is just overcommit and end up making a mistake yourself. So Robert Smith, he's going to have 2 laps to go at the end of this one to try and wrestle second place away from Elliot Norris. This will be Robert Smith's third podium of the third podium finish of the season, nonetheless, because he was on the podium at Silverstone, on the podium at Watson Park. He just dropped back a little bit on that last lap of Elliot Norris, so we are into the penultimate lap of the race. It's going to be a 22-lap race, and Brad Smith has been pretty much unheaded at the top of the field. So again, Elliot Norris a little bit ragged through. It doesn't really like the run through down towards Granville Bend. This is Robert Smith opportunity to close to himself. Then Norris hooks the car over the curve. He's got Granville Bend up to his liking. He's able to extend that advantage by a couple of car lengths as they accelerate in towards Surtees. The gap out to 3 or 4 car lengths. They're about to put the lap onto Adrian Barwick. And Adrian having been lapped by Brad Smith, although the rest of them are coming in fairly short order. As it's the final lap of the race, goes Brad Smith into the last lap board. And his advantage over Elliot Norris is in terms of Caterham Roadsport Championship an absolute eternity. It's almost 5 seconds, which shows just how close these races normally are. And this is a very much native race from the Caterham Roadsport, in seemingly being able to break clear in the way that he has. Right, so Barwick is lapped by Norris and Robert Smith. Brad Smith through Granville Bend for the final time. Just a little bit busy on the feet. Occasion Brad Smith. He drives a lot with himself, knowing it's the last lap, knowing he doesn't want to do a Nigel Mansell and wave for the crowd and hit the kill switch, or do anything silly like that. So he has just really managed his pace on this final lap, as Robert Smith not quite able to get himself onto terms with Elliot Norris for a last gasp challenge. So the checker flag goes out, and it's the win to Brad Smith. An excellent drive there from Brad Smith to claim the super victory, his second win of the year in the Avon Tyres Caterham Roadsport Championship. Second place goes the way of Elliot Norris. Third place to number 10, Robert Smith. Fourth place was for Achille Corbilati. In fifth place we had James Mackindo, and then in sixth place, number 82, Robert Chappell. Seventh place was claimed by the number 9 car of Jay Bradshaw. Eighth place went to number 32, Mark Lewis. Ninth place was number 17, Matthew Lowe, and then in 10th place we had number 4, John Whitehouse. 11th place claimed then by Humphrey Button, who's rather faded, unfortunately, over the course of this race after an excellent qualifying this morning. Bodywork flapping for 12th place for the number 69 car of Adrian Hume. 13th place went to Frank Holdwell in 64. 14th place to the number 46 car, Russell Tamplin. 15th place was number 2, James Ashworth, and then rounding out 16 finishers from the 16 starters, Adrian Barwick. So an excellent race from the Avon Tyres Caterham Roadsport Championship. We've got one more Caterham race to come today, and that's the 30-minute race from the Super Sport Championship. But before that,